Welcome to the show, Lexie. I am so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to pick your brain because you have some really unique experience, and we're just going to talk about the elephant in the room. You're young. You're young.
I am.
You're young, yet obviously you're very knowledgeable. So let's talk a little bit about this, because top 20 in her 20s, brilliant PR experts under 30, top female entrepreneurs to watch in 2020, but most importantly, your clients that you have featured on Forbes, Vogue, Oprah, Shark Tank. So tell me a little bit about this. First of all, how did you get started in this whole PR marketing realm that you're in?
Okay, so let me take you back because it's a little bit serendipitous. Originally, Lexie wanted to be an Oscar award-winning actress when she was little. I did. Well, that quickly changed as I became a teenager and I got more, the whole female self-conscious thing came.
Right.
So that dream shifted to broadcast journalism. So I originally started my undergraduate education pursuing broadcast journalism and public relations as a double. That just seemed like a natural fit.
Yeah.
And I was in New York City. So I'm from Oregon originally, state of Oregon. And I went to the University of Oregon, go Ducks, and I was in New York City at a National Broadcasting Society convention, so across the country. And I ran into this man and his son on the street wearing all decked out in duck gear. And so that's a natural conversation starter. That's a small world.
Right.
He turned out to own 2 PR firms in San Francisco and New York, but had a satellite office, ironically, in the town where I went to school of Eugene, Oregon, which is just like, look at it on a map. It's small. So that came home from New York, had a meeting with him. He offered me a job. I said, why not? I've always had a job since the age of 15, started working for his PR firm, and I fell in love. So I started in undergrad with real big clients where a lot of people were doing school and internships. Yes, I had that as well, but I actually had an opportunity to manage accounts at the age of 18, which was pretty cool. So that's where it started.
Nice. That's a cool opportunity. So how did you take it to where you are right now?
Okay, so basically the biggest step, I have to credit the show Shark Tank. Are you familiar with the show Shark Tank?
Yes, we all are familiar. Yes.
Okay, so I was a huge fan of the show, and it was my senior year in college, and I had just gotten back from studying abroad. And I saw this company on the show, and they were promoting a product, but the 2 women on the show had a PR firm. So they weren't on the show with their PR firm, but they do that little background story.
Right.
And this girl from Portland, Oregon had all these stars in her eyes. They were in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica. And I'm like, wow, that's my dream PR firm. And so I reached out to them, stalked them on Twitter, did all the things, and basically convinced them to hire me, and moved down to LA. And that's what got me from Oregon to LA. And from there, it just kind of expanded. And, I've worked in agencies, I've worked in-house, and my career has developed from there until today.
Nice. So now you own the THEPRBAR, which is very cool. I love that. The THEPRBAR Inc. And you help clients. You basically are a PR for them, or you help them gain public relations in their personal branding or business?
Okay, so traditional PR model is you hire a publicist or you hire a firm. And those are great, but there wasn't a lot of other market options to learn and do PR. And the more I looked into that, the more I realized I wanted to create that option. So the THEPRBAR is for those founders and companies who want to do PR in-house and they want to learn to do it themselves. And so I teach them all of the things, all the tools, all the tricks that the best PR firms in the world are using so they can execute in-house. So it's an alternative.
So let's pick your brain and share. I know you can't share everything here because it's probably very individualized to that particular brand or that business, but share with us some of those tips, you know, for someone that wants to get out there. Me, for instance, like we were talking about before, somebody like me that wants to make sure that their podcast reaches a new level, right? Because that's what, when you're in the podcast world, you really want your podcast to reach more and more levels, because the more levels that our show reaches, the more people that listen, the more people that we have an influence over. And if you have a show that shares a lot of tips, and whether it be beauty tips or business tips, and my show does it all, right? It's a whole lifestyle tip show, then you want to be able to have your show out there to more and more people, but it also gains more sponsors, right? So my show just started taking on sponsors a few months ago, and I've been at this game for not quite 2 years. I've already hit 100 episodes, but I was able to reach that level to gain sponsorship a few months ago. So with someone like me that wants to reach a higher level, what would be a tip for someone in that particular genre? So those that are listening that want to do podcasting or have a podcast show, what would you suggest for us?
First off, congratulations. That's a huge
Thank
accomplishment. You. Yeah. So we're going to actually take it back, because no matter who comes to me, whether they are, I have actual PR, people in PR who take my program. So no matter what level you come to me at, I make everyone learn this first. And it's kind of a redefinition of what PR is. And it's really important to understand before I can answer your question. Yeah. So PR, the way I look at it, and just to give a little more context, all the positions I've had prior to starting my company, I was the director of PR and marketing. I was the vice president of PR and marketing. So I've seen both sides of these very interconnected industries or categories. What PR is, it's your relationship with 6 different segments or target audiences. So that'll make sense in a second. So first we have public. So this is you and your brand's relationship with the public. Then we have community relations. So you and your brand's relationship with your community. Now that can be physical where you live or a podcast community just like yours. Then we have industry relations. So your relationship with others in your industry. For you, that would be podcasts, right? Or on the medical side or what have you. Mm-hmm. Then we have media relations, which that is very traditionally what people think of. They think of PR as press and red carpets and what have you. Right. And then we have customer relations, so your relationship with your customers. And then the final one is investor relations, which comes into play if you're looking to raise capital, get acquired, or sell. So PR is how we reach and interact with each of those segments to achieve a goal. So first thing, everyone, I want to understand is that PR is more than just press. It is press, but that's one of 6 categories. Sure. Your question, so now if we focus in, let me ask you this. What is your objective? Your objective, is it to get more listeners so you can have more sponsors? Is that accurate?
Yeah, so that would be one of the objectives, but that's not why I started my show, right? So everybody knows me, knows that I started my show from doing a Real Girl Talk Facebook Live, which basically just was me coming out of my comfort zone. Even though I was a pageant girl growing up, stage is one thing, video is another. And so in order to do a Facebook Live, that meant I couldn't have any mistakes. Right. So doing Facebook Live was coming out of my comfort zone, which was something that I wanted to do in order to share the books that I was writing and be able to gain attention. So I would be hired for speaking events, which turned into my podcast show. So originally the podcast show was actually just to reach more women and help women step out of their comfort zones, work through their adversities, their challenges, and inspire them that no matter what happens, no matter what the odds are stacked against you, you can prosper right where you are. So that's the reason for the show. But in order to get that word out, yes, I need more sponsors. But to get more sponsors, you have to have more listeners. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah, and it's all connected. And I think you hit on a few really important parts. There's multiple objectives here. Let's pick one just so I can answer your question very clearly. Let's say get more listeners.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe you're at 10,000, you want to get to 100,000.
Right.
So the first thing we do is we ask ourselves, of those 6 categories, who has an effect on me achieving that objective? Who of those 6 audiences can help me get more listeners? When we answer that, that's where we know where to start. So sometimes for people, we should start with looking at the media because that's a great way to reach the public. However, sometimes an easier place to start is looking at our community because communities can be great for referrals. We were talking about the Bra Network prior to pressing live. That's a great community. And sometimes, depending on someone's PR goal, their business goal, starting there is actually the first place to go. So I guess long story short is there's a lot of questions that I do have to ask to give you a very specific answer. It isn't black or white. It's not one singular answer.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense because it really depends on what your ultimate goal is. So, if you're looking at someone that say, I know I have real estate agents that listen. I have women that listen that have online business as well as a brick and mortar business. So for somebody like that, just generically, if you take someone that has an online business, maybe that they're just starting or they're trying to revamp an online business, where do we go from there? So a couple of tips for those listeners. What would you tell them, not knowing what their business is, but just in general, an online business? What are some tips that you have for those listeners?
Yeah, and so I'll answer to the lens of the media side because I think that's a lot of times what people are curious about. So first off, there are a set of standards to be quote unquote press ready. There are some things that if you want to put yourself ahead of the curve, you should have in order. One of which is photos. High quality professional photos matter in PR. They do. It can literally be the make or break between you getting featured and somebody else. So photos are really important. Secondary, getting your bios in order. So there's different types of bios for press. There's a speaker bio, but there's also a byline. So understanding really the assets that you want to have in order. And this one is really important. Having your website, since we're talking online, good to go and set to convert. Because what happens if you land this great press placement and then all of a sudden you get all this new traffic to a website that just sucks? Then what was the point of that press win? If your point is to make more money or get new followers or what have you, we have to be set up to convert when we get that influx of traffic. So a lot of times people come to me and I have to go, hold on. Before we talk, the Forbes of the world, the Vogues in the world, I need to see what you have. And if you're ready for what a big press win entails. Inventory. Do you have inventory stocked? Shark Tank's a great example, right? If you're going to go on Shark Tank, do you have the inventory and the systems in place to handle that influx of new traffic? So that's foundationally important. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense because, I think that's one of the questions that they'll ask sometimes on Shark Tank. They're like, can you handle, a big order of 200,000, items? And sometimes they'll give them the deer in the headlight look because they are looking for someone on the Shark Tank to help them get to that level when in fact they're expecting you to be at that level before you ever come on the show, and they actually invest in you. One of the girls that was on my show, Lisa D'Amato, she's from the Shark Tank and she got a deal with Barbara. And the coolest thing ever, it's called Dare You Go. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's for little kids, and it looks like a little bib that catches all their food. And
Yes.
saw that. And so Lisa was on my show. She was also America's Top Model 2012. And
I totally know who that is. Yes. Okay.
Yes. So she has like a big castle or something in California, but she's super cool. She actually was on my show with her partner that helped her with Dare You Go. And she told the story about that. And then one thing that she said is she was prepared. So they were already prepared before going to Shark Tank. And I think that's probably what was instrumental in Barbara signing on with her and taking on that deal and partnering with her, because she saw how equipped that she was. But she had been in the industry, right? So she'd been on America's Top Model. She knew how the whole TV segment and the whole deal worked. You know, she even came dressed with her little polka dots to gain attention. And so she kind of knew that already. But for somebody that's not in that industry, that maybe is starting that podcast or has a podcast already or an online business or whatever it is, you know, it's like, okay, where do you start? And that's a really great idea and a great tip that you gave us. You said to start with, be photo ready, start with those good quality photos. And a lot of us don't think about that. And also the bios, you know, just for a little tip out there, guys, I will tell you, if you haven't created a bio on what we call in this industry a media kit, rather, which is really just no more than just a bio sheet that has pictures, you can go on Canva, canva.com. You don't have to hire someone to do a media bio for you. You can actually go on canva.com. You can type in media kit or media bio, and all of these different, you know, PDF templates will pop up. Now, putting what to say on there, you may need some PR help on what to actually put on there. And two, you really do have to have a social media platform. You have to have a website, because otherwise, what are you going to put on your media kit on how to contact you? A phone number or an email is not going to cut it. They're going to want to basically stalk you before they ever have you on their show. Am I correct?
Correct. 100%. Yes. Yeah, so media kit is another thing that you create to be quote unquote press ready. Now you have to understand how to use that media kit. That's kind of the next level. But when we talk about where does one start? They're just like starting a business. There's some foundational things you need to get in order. Just like when I started the PR bar, I had to go get my LLC and do a lot of the legwork before it was all pretty and out there in the world. It's very similar when we talk about PR and media. Right.
And I like that, Lexie, because that's one thing that I talk about is decluttering your mind and being organized. Start a to-do list. You know, if you really don't know where to start with your photos, start with creating your bio, do a one-page media sheet. You can get someone to help you with a website. If you don't have the budget for that, you can create a simple WordPress or Wix website yourself. You can connect links to it. I won't say that it's easy, but most of them are user-friendly. I know Wix.com is user-friendly. That's the one that I use. And so I've helped create a couple of my friends' websites because they're throwing up their hands going, I don't know what to do here. And, you know, I've done it. So I'm like, hey, I can whip it up for you in an hour. It's not a problem. So you can do those kind of things too. There are things that you can get done. Let me ask you this, for someone that has maybe they're a real estate agent, because I know I have some real estate agents that listen. Would it be instrumental in them as well to have a bio sheet, or is that something necessary for someone that works in real estate?
If they want to start to get press, yes, they should have a bio.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure media is what they need to achieve their goals. Now, local business journals might be great if they're looking for new clientele, applying for different awards and accolades at your local business journals. So when we talk about the next step, it's understanding where to target and with what purpose. So depending on the real estate agent's goals, you know, I don't know if they're going to want to be in the media, especially at the next level past local press, then these are things they should have in order, because honestly, it's a very saturated, competitive market. A lot of people are trying to go after PR wins, and a lot of people are ready and a lot of people aren't. So why not just at least put yourself in the half of people that are ready, and then you're competing with, it's a smaller percentage.
Right. No, I totally get it. It makes perfect sense to me. And two, I guess that could be used as well as someone that is a blogger. I know that my daughter, for instance, we'll just use my daughter as an example. She started a Facebook group called Living Learning Lifestyles. And she started that originally because the child she's like you, she's young, but she's just brilliant. And she has so many ideas to share. She's a mom, but she's also a stepmom. She's also a Christian warrior. She goes to church. She's also a school teacher, and she's now she runs their digital marketing. I don't know what you call librarians these days, but it's a fancy term. And she does all that, and she does it really, really well. And so she took all of that and started a Facebook group, Living Learning Lifestyles, and she posts all kind of things. She posts deals that she gets from Amazon. So she kind of partnered with them to get links for like 48-hour deals only that you can't find. You have to actually use her link. And I'm talking good stuff, like a $50 item for $10 for 48 hours. And you would know it unless you went to her Facebook group, but she also posts things that she does that she's worked through. Just the fact that she's lost her best friend and her brother 13 years ago, and she's come across and to where she is today speaks volumes. I mean, she posts recipes, she posts inspirational quotes. There's all kind of things. And she has hundreds, I think she's up to 600 or 700 people that are on her Living Learning Lifestyles. But for her, it's not about press and all of these things. She just wants to share her Facebook group. She wants to be a place where women can come, married or not, children or not, to be able to find good deals, inspiration, and lifestyle tips that can make your life easier. Now, yeah, she has in those links, she actually gets paid commission when people use those links, right? So she can utilize that to monetize it a bit to where, but that's not her ultimate goal. So with someone like her, or someone that has a Facebook group, or someone, for instance, that just wants to be able to, I don't know, maybe it's a writer, maybe it's just an author or a blogger or somebody like that. How would they go about making themselves known in publications? Rather, maybe it's not the news, so it's not TV media, be more of media for magazine publicity, where they don't have to buy an ad, but they can make themselves seen. And where would that person start?
Okay, so the next thing to do once you're press ready is you want to get an idea of, once again, your end goal. So in this scenario, it's more visibility, more attracting more people to their communities or to their book, what have you.
Right.
So you have to think and do a little research. Where are my people at? What outlets are they reading? What blogs are they on? What podcasts are they listening to? Because guess what, people? Sometimes Forbes isn't the answer for you. And that's a big misconception. I have a lot of people come to me and they see all these big logos that, my clients and I have achieved over the years. And it's cool, but guess what? Sometimes those haven't been the biggest needle movers. There's different publications serve different purposes. Some are really to establish credibility. I look at Forbes as something that really helps establish credibility. Whereas a smaller blog might actually, let's say your podcast, for example, being featured on a real estate blog, since we talked about that being one of your listeners, might actually drive more downloads because that's where your people are. So second step is to find and figure out, and there's systems and softwares you can use to help you. A lot of this, I think, just ask in your current communities, right? If she has a Facebook group, ask them, where do you guys hang out online? What are you reading? What podcasts do you listen to? A little bit of qualitative research, and start building that list. We call it a media list, and So that's like step 2. And then subset of that is identifying the who we want to communicate with on that outlet, because eventually we're going to have to pitch ourselves to be on that outlet.
Right. No, that's really, I mean, that's really good advice, because that's true. I mean, for us to be able to pitch ourselves on that outlet, we have to be ready, right? So if we're pitching ourselves on an outlet and you don't have a social media, you don't have a website, then where are you going to send your people back to once you're on it? I mean, it's just kind of dead, right? You're actually just going to have an article, or you're going to have a segment, but there's nowhere to send them. There's nowhere to go from there. So that makes perfect sense. So it would make sense to me to have some type of bio and pictures that are ready right away before you ever pitch yourself on anything.
Correct.
Right.
Because you're going to need that. It depends on what you're pitching, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of different things. Podcasts, for example, pitching a podcast looks very different than pitching for a feature story, which looks different than pitching for a roundup, which looks different than pitching for a guest post. There's different nuances to all these different pitches. But I will tell you point blank, get your bio and photos ready now, because you're going to need them eventually.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Well, Lexie, I know that we can talk forever, but you have given us some really good tips. So guys, look, if you have a business, a book, a blog, if you're in real estate, if you're a hairdresser, I mean, all of that combined, Lexie gave you some really good tips. And I think one place that she told us is to be press ready. And that's to have the bios, have the photos. And you don't have to necessarily have a website, but you have to have some form of something where they can stalk you on. So you would have to have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever's your thing. I was taught from a business coach one time that she said, make sure that you spend a lot of your time on 2 social media platforms, and maybe you can spend part-time on a third, but to be on all of them, that's where you would spend all of your time, and it's exhausting. Don't do it. Focus on 2 social media platforms. And so mine are Facebook and Instagram, and some people, it may be Twitter and Instagram. I'm not a TikToker, so I don't understand all of that. Although it looks like I've got to get in that game. I'm just not.
I'm not either. Disclaimer. I know I'm young, but I am not on the TikTok world.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I'm seeing people like everybody, but I think once you see a couple of the TikToks, they're really cute, but I really don't want to see you TikToking every single day. I don't want to see you doing a video where you're just like pointing to words and smiling. Like, no. I mean, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like,
well, it's coming to Instagram now with the reels, all the pointing.
Yeah. All the,
you notice that?
And it's like, and it's cute. You know what? A couple of those are really cute. It's great to kind of intermingle those, but I think people want to do what we're doing, and they want to be in the conversation, and that's what's great about podcast and video, because they want to be a part of the conversation. They want to feel like they're getting something from that. And if you're just telling me, if you're just pointing to these little boxes and I've got to sit there and hurry up and read them, I'm aging myself right now because I'm just too old. I can't read that fast anymore. Just talk to me.
It's true. I tried to open the reel, because now Instagram has that reel feature, and my interns, because I have a few interns who are younger and in college and with it, and they're like, you should record a reel. And I opened the app and I'm like, I got so overwhelmed. I just put it down. I'm like, nope, not my thing. If I am forced into it one day, fine. But
I literally got on TikTok, really just to look at, to see if my son was on there. And then I know my son's girlfriend's on there. She's drop dead gorgeous. She does all these TikToks, and hey, that's great. I mean, it's just not for me. It's not for me. And I may have to change that. Guys, you may see me TikToking here in about a month, but I'm hoping that I can just continue these real conversations rather than just point at boxes and make you read them, because I personally, that you're not reaching me, right? So I don't know who you're reaching, but it's not me. And the people in my business world. So I guess to each his own, but that might change in a couple of months. Who knows? I mean, you look at the beginning of this year, we never realized that our main objective in meetings was to make sure that we had ring lights so we could we could look halfway decent when we're doing our Zoom calls day after day after day, right? So the whole world has changed, especially for those moms that are homeschooling and trying to figure out how to work at the same time. So everything's upside down. We have to change with the times. So I appreciate you telling us everything that you know about PR, because I know that you have a lot more to share. Guys, if you really want someone to help you, reach out to Lexie at the PR Bar. Go to her website. It's so cute. She calls it the bar because she talks about the little sipping. And two, you have a podcast, Pitchin and Sippin podcast. So make sure you jump over there too. It's really cute. I mean, your whole idea with the PR Bar and what you have with the little, with the sipping, and it's just super cute, super cute.
Why, thank you.
You can, I mean, for somebody that's in your industry, I mean, you can tell, you know what you're talking about just because you've created a cute brand. And it's really, it's exciting to sit there and look at it. It's clean. It looks good. It's attractive. And so I know without a doubt why you're successful. So thank you for being on Real Girl Talk and sharing with us. We're honored to have you.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. And I know we barely just scratched the surface on all things PR. So you and I definitely, let's stay in touch. And if anyone wants to stalk my website, by all means, there's tons of free resources on there.
Stalk her website. Oh, good. Free resources. So yeah. So tell everybody before we jump off where we can find you, Lexie.
So if you're a podcast fan, which if you're listening to this, I'm assuming you are, I do have a new podcast, as you mentioned. It's called Pitchin and Sippin, and I interview members of the media, other PR professionals and founders. So that's a great place to start. Other than that, I'm going to say go to my Instagram, which is at @ThePRBAR_Inc. That'll lead you to everywhere, the website, all the things.
All the things. Nice.
All the things.
Thank you again. We appreciate you so very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Thank you.